Here's a currently popular favorite for both American or South American popular dance lovers. Deep in a Dream, and Helen Forrest is the singer.
Yes. What, sorry?
Director Artie Shaw not only plays a wailing torrid clarinet, but also occasionally leads the way with an original composition.
That's okay. Okay, welcome everybody. This is the Leo Zagami Show with Leo and Christy. And our puppets. And of course, we are still celebrating 20 years of Illuminati Confessions with this special edition. Then we had also this week my presence with Sean Atwood and other friends, and it all went great. And so we have also some new subscribers, I notice, for our modest channel, which of course suffers.
Some people from England, but probably right now they're asleep. So.
Yes, I will follow this later on. Today the subject is directly from my new book, and it regards this forbidden grimoire ascribed to a pope. We're gonna also discuss the importance of this grimoire, because it's rather unique, as we have a series of grimoires which are usually focused on Solomonic magic that started to surface in contemporary with the Jesuits. Yes, strangely enough, all the grimoires appeared on the scene when the Jesuits started to take care of things, especially in regards to the Inquisitions they were later controlled. But let's not forget that the Jesuits were actually picked up by the Pope so they could somehow investigate this witchcraft, all these witches that allegedly were around at the time, even if we have also the fact that the Vatican itself wanted to have the exclusivity over the vocation of these fallen angels, these aliens, as we call them today. Now, we are not stating that every extraterrestrial, interdimensional, extra-dimensional being is necessarily demonic, but we definitely have a good chunk of them that we need to address. And this grimoire that we're going to discuss today is particularly relevant. But first of all, Christy, who are the sponsors of today's show?
We have Daniel Estes and Malgazada Minta and Hyo Yozumaki. Thank you guys so much, and everybody who bought the book. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. Actually, let's give them a brief applause here from the headquarters. Grazie, as we say in Italy. Okay, now the book still going great, also because it's the only book at the moment in circulation which talks about the Vatican top secret aliens agenda. We don't have any other books in the English language on this topic. That seems to be
Nothing with the Vatican and UFOs.
very rare, and definitely they never have hit the charts on Amazon like we have done.
Do you think everybody's just too chicken?
I think definitely this is a topic that deserves more attention, but unfortunately, most people, when they become stars of the mainstream regarding this topic, they tend to abandon, of course.
So do you think that's why we are so shadow banned, Amore?
Well, I mean, we continue to be shadow banned because Leo Zagami, 20 years of revelations, many of them have come into fruition, and of course the system doesn't particularly like me, to say the least.
No. People think that you disappear and you've been here all along.
Well, yeah, because they make me disappear, so to say. Well, this was also the week in which we had the Pentagon releasing their 5th batch of declassified, unidentified anomalous phenomena files, and it was, of course, another nothing burger. It was this 5th batch was released on August 7th. It features 41 new records. The disclosure includes 1950s memos, CIA notes from the 1960s, and FBI artistic renderings of a massive triangular object reported over Afghanistan in 2002. Yes, this big sort of reverse pyramid. But I mean, like I said, there is nothing really groundbreaking. The contributing agencies, Pentagon, FBI, CIA, State Department, and Executive Office of the President often present this kind of videos and documents, not content, videos and photos in particular, without explaining the context, which makes it a little bit difficult also for analysts who want to take seriously this definitely soft disclosure, which is ongoing at the moment. Some say that actually the 5th batch might be even the last batch. However, we know that Trump is desperate for rising back in the polls, but I don't think any UFOs will help him out, because there is an increased number of Americans that doesn't want wars, especially the ongoing war in the Middle East with Iran, the possibility even of the use of nuclear weapons that has been ventilated by some people like Tucker Carlson. And then we have, of course, some alarmists also in regards to Russia that they say might invade a NATO country after the summer, which might be one of the countries we even visited, like Estonia, for example, Christy, because that seems to be the challenge. All of this because, of course, at the moment, it seems like America, the United States of America, has run out of missiles, especially the Patriot missiles are no longer available for Zelensky, who can't defend himself with all the billions that we poured into this war. It seems he still is the loser, but who knows what's going to happen next, guys? Who knows? It's rather strange. Also the growing involvement of North Korea, and when we saw that movie by Steven Spielberg, that disclosure that went on in the background, kind of dramatic.
It was a World War III kind of thing going
yes.
on.
So, I mean, might that be some kind of form of predictive programming? Who knows? One thing, though, that I noticed is that the only one who seems to be really happy about this fifth batch of UFO files is Avi Loeb, the Israeli-American scientist who is now taking control of the situation on behalf of the White House for this scientific commission. Check this out.
Pentagon has released a new batch of documents and images related to unidentified flying objects. This is now the fifth release under an executive order President Trump signed back in January. It directed the military and other agencies to release more UFO files.
So it's not big enough in Berger, but he believes it. And of course, he's going to get probably some money now. He's in charge of things.
What stands out to you in this new batch of UFO files? I see you smiling.
This fifth tranche of UAP data that was released today is different from past releases because there are three remarkable anomalies that are delivered in verbal testimonies.
Oh, so finally now we have a verbal testimony. That's what Avi Loeb is saying. No longer only lights in the sky. Now the Harvard astronomer, who is also a Israeli intelligence asset, has been appointed by the White House in July to lead this new scientific advisory council investigating UAPs, UFOs, or whatever you want to call them. But I think, of course, he needs to be enthusiastic, you know, as he was working for the White House now. So
digital data in the form of imagery or video, as we have seen before. In fact, I first tried to look for those images or videos, but they were quite disappointing. Instead, the three remarkable testimonies are as follows. One of them is talking about a gunship that on September 2021 was conducting a live fire exercise in the Gulf of Oman, and noticed 25 instances of unidentified objects that looked like cold orbs, and they appeared to react to the aircraft firing and were moving together just like dolphins at a speed of up to 1.
Oh, wow! Let's chase the lights in the sky without ever referencing, of course, to the biological bodies of aliens that might be somewhere here in the United States or the various UFOs themselves, these unidentified objects that have allegedly crashed over and over again. And so, where are they? We know that the reverse engineering program exists. It's called the Legacy program. but it seems that the whole thing is a big cover-up, and there is never anything new that is revealed that might change things, because, of course, the cover of national security interests, security clearances, and then we have, of course, these Jesuit puppets like Luis Elizondo or David Grush that also participate to the theatrics, let's say, of the whole thing. But today we want to discuss something else. We want to discuss something that comes from the past, from a book which is actually claiming to be by some who, of course, are selling it also on the internet. I don't know if now this is a reprint or it's an original copy, but it says here it's sold out for a price of $1,800. And it says here, the Grimoire, please read it, Christy. So we introduce a little bit the subject of today.
The Grimoire du Pope Honorius occupies
Honorius, I would say in Latin, maybe.
Honorius.
Yes.
Occupies a singular position among the French grimoires, where the Key of Solomon frames operations within a broadly pious, if
heterodox cosmology,
and the Grand Grimoire offers its infernal pact with a certain theatrical swagger. The Honorius is Honorius is something stranger and darker, a manual of demonic conjuration, designed explicitly for a Catholic priest. Embedded within the structure of the Mass itself, it is the sacrilegious specificity that earned its A.F. White's judgment.
White judgment.
As perhaps the most frankly diabolical of the major ritual texts, and that has made... I can't even read it, maybe because it's about that. I don't know.
Yes, you seem to have some problems. Okay, so let's explain a little bit the importance, because like you just read, I mean, this grimoire might actually not have been written by a pope, because we're gonna go deep into who really wrote this grimoire. It might have been actually an anti-pope, but that's another thing we will now dig into. But the grimoire of Pope Honorius, it's actually devised for a Catholic priest, and it's the first time that one of these grimoires is specifically device for a Catholic priest. So what happens here, Christy? Happens that actually Eliphas Levi, who we all know because I cited him often in my books, the guy who actually launched the word occultism, Sabbatean Frankist, as I also demonstrated in The Rise and Fall of a Frankist Monster. Eliphas Levi gave an incredible testimony of an event regarding this grimoire and a specific priest. And this is very interesting. It's an interesting anecdote, because what happened was this. He actually includes it in Le Clef de Grand Mystère, which is the key of the mysteries. Now, Eliphas Levi, his real name, as we know, was Alphonse Louis Constant, a former member of the Catholic clergy himself, had given up being a member of the clergy because, of course, he was way too socialist and way too prone to the occult. But the interesting thing is that at one point, because he was so popular in France as, you know, the guy who knew everything about occultism, about these grimoires, he received the visit of a priest that was called Jean-Louis Berger. And this priest asked him about this grimoire. Eliphas Levi wanted to purchase it from Eliphas Levi. Eliphas Levi actually didn't sell him the grimoire, but apparently this priest became crazy because of it, and then killed the Archbishop Marie-Dominique Auguste-Cibor in Paris during a procession. So it was very dramatic. This happened in 1857. So what happened was, I mean, Eliphas Levi, of course, uses this episode, and it frames this episode as an illustration of the dangers of black magic, of what are unbalanced minds and the corrupting effects of certain grimoires. So he recounts meeting this young priest, he later identified as Verger, all proven after. I mean, it's not like it was invented, and it was all proven to be actually very accurate to what Eliphas Levi stated. So Verger went to Eliphas Levi, treated, that he defined as the professor of occult science. So he wanted to have, an audience with the professor of occult science. And they met at the home of a mutual, at the home of a mutual acquaintance, Madame A. We don't know exactly who this Madame A is, but Berger wanted to obtain a copy of this rare grimoire of Pope Honorius. And what happened? He was actually willing to pay a very high price to Eliphas Levi. He wanted to, a priest arrives there to somebody who is a former member of the clergy, who was no longer, of course, a member of the clergy, but was known as the professor of occult science, and wanted to obtain, because at the time, of course, nowadays you can obtain a copy of this book on the internet, guys. It's not that difficult. So, I mean, either in French or even in the translated versions in English, it's been published. So, but back then there was no internet. So this priest goes, Levi describes him physically as young and slim, with an arch-pointed nose, dull blue eyes, and a bony projecting forehead, flat short hair of a grayish blonde chestnut shade. I mean, very, very detailed. A sensual and quarrelsome mouth.
Oh.
I mean, why would he say that if he didn't have some kind of tendencies himself? It sounds a little bit weird, but they're all former priests. We know that the Catholic priests have a tendency to be 80% of them homosexual, so that's not a big deal. Affable manners, so maybe it was a little bit. A soft voice, and occasionally embarrassed speech. That was the description of Eliphas Levi. Now, Levi warned him immediately that the work was valueless, that it was condemned by the church, and that it was an apocryphal text attributed falsely to a pope, because Eliphas Levi in reality had attributed this grimoire not to Honorius III, which commonly is referred to as the author, but to an anti-pope who was Honorius II. Now, there will be also immediately after an Honorius II a legitimate, so not to be confused. I know all these anti-popes are rather confusing in the history of the church, but he didn't last that long, this Honorius guy, this Honorius II. But apparently what Eliphas Levi is trying to say is that because he was made an anti-pope, to rebel, he created this grimoire to evoke these fallen angels, these demons, like an act of rebellion almost. So, but let's go back to the story. So, this Berger, this priest, was seeking this grimoire for strong form of conjuration, because apparently Berger had already attempted a devil evocation in a country vicarage. This is a Catholic priest I was talking about, but you shouldn't be shocked. Using a you shouldn't be shocked, guys, because let's not forget that the first Black Mass was celebrated by Caterina de' Medici in Paris, in France, with a Catholic priest. And let's not forget also l'affaire des poisons, Madame Voisin. We will talk also about that, because that's another thing that connects also to this grimoire. Anyway, Levi learned later on that Berger had already attempted some kind of demonic evocation in what was the church. No, he reported apparently after this evocation that this priest had done, he reported a whirling wind, shaking of the building, groaning beams, cracking, shaking of the doors, crashing of the windows, all those kind of elements that we find also in Spiritism. But he didn't have suddenly an alien, as they call him today, or an interdimensional demon appearing in front of him. That's why he sought stronger conjuration. So Levy reports, though, that the night before, I think that in early 1857, January, because it was the 3rd of January when this terrible event happened, this homicide by this priest, that in the very first day, earlier, he had some ominous dreams before the event happened, because he was present at the procession when the guy killed the archbishop. He didn't imagine that will happen, of course. He had refused to give him the grimoire. But on January 3 of 1857, during the feast of Saint Genevieve, now this is a patron of Paris, Saint Genevieve. But it's interesting because it's one of the few saints which is actually referenced in some charms associated with the grimoire tradition. So there is a connection there that is rather interesting. Berger stabbed the archbishop in the church of Saint-Étienne-du-Mont during the procession service. So during, when they do the procession, all the priests go along with the archbishop, who usually heads the procession, no? And he goes there, and while he kills them, he says, "Down with the goddesses, away with the goddesses," almost like a reference tied to an opposition to the Marian devotion. Because at the time, it had been recently defined the actual dogma of the Immaculate Conception in 1854. So we're talking about a statement that was rather strange and rather strong for a Catholic priest. Mm-hmm. Down with the goddesses and killing the archbishop. It's completely outrageous. But what brought him to do that? Because apparently the Archbishop Sibor died of the wound. Berger, of course, was arrested and eventually guillotined on January 30, 1857, so a few weeks after the event. Afterwards, though, a bookseller that was specialized in occult text confirmed to Eliphas Levi that he sold a copy of the Grimoire of Honorius to him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So he actually told him, he sold them to a young priest, matching, and it was matching Berger's description that we saw. Eliphas Levi gave very clearly. So, and Levi concluded that Berger had obtained and used the book in an improper way, of course, because this book is improper. This book, guys, is a book which I found for the first time in my father's library when I was a kid, and it scared really the hell out of me, because these were the most scary books in my father's library. I know they were not, you saw my father's library is a very big library with a lot of books, old books that are hundreds years old, all kinds of books. This is not particularly old. It was a book from, I think, 1971. It's a serious, first edition, 1971, published by a guy who calls himself Jorg Sabellicus. I talk about it in my book, The Vatican Top Secret Alien Agenda. I talk about who this guy is, himself, of course, a practitioner of the arts, an Illuminati, and this book, the actual grimoire, you see, Grimorio di Papa Onorio, it scared me because it was, I mean, the first time that I saw a deliberate a way of, I mean, apart from the fact it says between, I mean, it says here, so I can translate it to you, it's in Italian, but I'm going to translate it quickly, this line, because it gives you an idea of what I read and what scared me. I was like maybe 11 years old when 11 or 12. It says, fra I diversi libri neri è quello che nel tempo si è acquistato la fama di più diabolico. It says, amongst the black books, it's the one that in the course of time has acquired the most diabolical fame of all the grimoires. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw that, I was like, "Ooh,
did you read it?
Let me read it. It's really scary, but you know, sometimes when I was a little bit scared, I remember I used to go. Remember, there is a Soparco there in my father's library, and then there is that top part, and there was a bed over there. So I went over there on that bed on top, and I opened the book.
You read it up there?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, and I also, of course, put the right music.
What music do you remember?
Well, probably I put some Goblin from Dario Argento's Profondo Rosso.
Dark little boy.
I wanted to make myself
My brother was playing with trucks.
Okay, but you better play with trucks.
And I was playing with Barbies. I don't know.
Well, I already had bought my first book about witchcraft, the power of witchcraft, a couple of years earlier, the one that I got for my 10 year after I gave my exams when I was 10.
From your grandmother?
No, from my mother. No, my grandmother gave me the year after, actually, a book of Aleister Crowley, the Book of Thoth. I just wanted to have a look at these books, guys. I know. I was a weird kid. What can you do? But in any case, this book says here is particularly offensive for Catholics because it opens up with a bull which is ascribed to a pope. So Berger might have gone crazy, and of course he was guillotined for having killed an archbishop. But here we are talking about a book where there is a series of sacrilegious rites which include the sacrifice of a black cock, the actual, and also a sheep whose skin needs to be laid out for a number of days. So you have animal sacrifice such as a black cock, preparations of powders from organs, fasting for a few days, masses that have, they are actually the pre-Vatican II masses. They are the real masses. I mean, this is a dress for a priest. It's not a normal thing. And other profanations. Now, the interesting thing that I explain also in the Vatican top secret alien agenda is that it's actually a Catholic priest which is required for a black mass. Even near Castel Gandolfo, where they do a lot of black masses, they always use a Catholic priest. Yeah. There is evidence
probably of the Pope's doing them now.
Well, I don't know about that, but definitely people around the Castel Gandolfo area are doing that. The Catholic priest, probably even close to him. That's absolutely possible. Now, Levi, like I said, uses the episode almost didactically within the broader structure of this key of the mysteries, which addresses religious, philosophical, natural, magical mysteries, often trying to reconcile faith, science, and reason, which is always a classic in the work of Eliphas Levi. We have, of course, discussed him in the past. We have dedicated a whole episode. If you want to go and check it, during 2023, we did a series of deep dives into all these occult elements. And of course also the various grimoires, and I cited also the specific one attributed to a pope. But Levi gave actually a very negative view of this particular grimoire. that was colored by his own personal experience with Verger's identity and execution, what happened after he allegedly practiced something out of this grimoire. And independent historical sources confirm the assassination details and Verger's background. But of course, they can't confirm the role of the grimoire, but Levy was actually lucky enough to meet with the guy, the book dealer who sold them. And then he said, obviously, he didn't listen to me, went on, practiced it, and went and got possessed. And at that point, on January 3rd, 1857, on the feast of Saint Genevieve, patron saint of Paris, he executed the archbishop. But like I said, is not the only dark character connected to this book. This book, which was, allegedly published in Latin initially, in I think 1629, and later on in 1670, it was published in French, but it was published both times in Rome. However, it's also possible that it was published in France, saying that it was published in Rome, because this book became absolutely prohibited. The Inquisition will arrest you. If they find you with this book, they will sentence you, and they will. So it probably also, if they published it in France and saying they published it in Rome, it was a way of, because then the Vatican, once you published a book, at the time there were not that many printers, so they could maybe see the style of the printing and maybe get to the printing house and then get to the author. So it could be, so we don't really have the confirmation of the first print in Latin, but we have wide confirmation of the later prints in French, which became rather popular. Like I said, it's entrenched with Catholic liturgy, and it needs the priestly authority to forcefully bind, command, and enslave specific infernal spirits. So it is framed as a pseudo-papal authorization, the constitutions of Pope Honorius the Great. So you actually, have a pope here that is granting a Catholic priest the power to command the prince of darkness and his angels, treating them as rebellious servants who must obey. And they must obey because the pope apparently is given the authority to command them, because as is the Pope, the representative of God on earth, that is, of course, we have already explained. Pope Honorius might have actually been Pope Honorius II and not Pope Honorius III, and on top of that, not Pope Honorius II, the regular Pope Honorius, but rather the anti-pope that was dethroned. Regarding what we find in this grimoire, because why it perplexed really occultists. This people like Eliphas Levi described it as a gruesome, wicked, and profane ritual. And then we have Arthur Edward Waite, the guy you said, A.E. White, no? White, yes. Because he actually writes about it and talks about, but he writes about it and actually, let's not forget, he was also a member of the Golden Dawn, so Crowley then read it. Crowley, who then his mentor was MacGregor Matters, who was always in Paris, and who, of course, is known for having translated the Book of Abraham and the Mage, and also other more Solomonic magical grimoires, even with the collaboration of Crowley, who then used them to evoke these entities. Now, White instead saw it as a kind of clever imposture, like a calculated way of deceiving ignorant, magically inclined priest by pretending that there was the backing of the papal seat. So, maybe some priest will fall for it. Now, regarding the practitioners that use this kind of magic without, of course, the Catholic Mass, you can't really have the full-on ritual becoming effective. And I want to explain you why. Because what they do is to, first of all, ask God for protection in these rituals. With Saint Michael, as you know, is the great protector of Satan. He's the slayer, Satan's dominate. The Archangel Michael is fundamental in all this. But why these masses? Because these masses are built so that actually the angels bring this protection, and once all these masses are conducted and the protection of the priest is granted, then he can, with the holy water, make a circle, put himself inside the circle, then put a triangle and evoke the demon within the triangle. We all know that this is a typical practice, also Solomonic magic, that was also practiced by Aleister Crowley when he went out in the desert with Victor Neuburg to evoke Choronzon. Same kind of thing, But Crowley, what he did, he wanted to be possessed, and so he goes out of the circle and gets possessed, and then he even does unspeakable sexual things with Neuburg to evoke this demon of the abyss. So, Crowley is not somebody we should take as an example, because he's definitely somebody who... So the magical circle that functions to shield the conjurer from these horrific physical deformities and visual terrors of these infernal spirits is designed to protect the guy who is actually conjuring. Because you see, we are talking here about an evocation that happens through a series of invocations. And regarding who these fallen angels are, because of course, regarding the fallen angels, we have there is a distinct boundary in Judeo-Christian theology, Western occultism, regarding the entities summoned in the Grimorium of Pope Honorius and the Nephilim, for example. But in the end, we see that the spirits in the Grimoire are the fallen angels and infernal demons, and they could also be the Nephilim, of course, because if a practitioner uses the Grimoire of Pope Honorius, they are directly engaging with certain specific Enochian rebels. Of course, if you want to engage with the whole of the Enochian structure of the Enochian rebels, then we have the work of John Dee, which is then the work that was used by Aleister Crowley, the Enochian language.
Yeah.
He devised actually a language to talk with these fallen angels. Now, in the Book of Enoch, though, we have some of the demons present in the Grimorium of Honorius, and specifically Azazel, which in the Book of Enoch, Azazel is the chief architect of human corruption. So this is particularly interesting. Teaching weaponry and cosmetics in medieval grimoires is tied to the Honorius tradition, is handled as a major prince of the infernal realm. And like I said, is present in this Grimorium. Then we have another figure, another demonic figure of importance, Asmodeus. Of course, who doesn't know Asmodeus? It's pretty known. It's maybe like Beelzebub, secondary figure respect to Lucifer or Satan, but still very known figure. Now, is mentioned heavily in broader grimoire cycles and biblical apocrypha, is often tied to the corrupt spiritual offspring resulting from the Watcher descent. Let's not forget that the Nephilim are the descendants of the Watchers. Astaroth. Now, Astaroth is another of the Book of Enoch figures that we find in the Grimorium of Pope Honorius. Astaroth, while I mean it's of course rather known, is rather known quite strictly a fallen seraph in the Luciferian line, so also present in the traditional biblical narrative. Certain esoteric traditions harmonize Astaroth with the forbidden cosmic mystery leaked to humans by the Watchers. Now, of course, there is differences even between the fallen angel demons of the Grimoire and the Nephilim or the Watchers that preceded them. But if we adopt the ancient astronaut theory on this specific Grimorium of Pope Honorius, we can see that it can be definitely viewed as a manual for summoning aliens. So when you translate the occult terminology of this 17th century grimoire into modern science fiction or ufological terms, the similarities in how these entities are described and contacted becomes striking. I mean, in modern ufologies, you have researchers like Jacques Vallée that proposed the interdimensional hypothesis. We have the theory that argues that aliens are not space travelers from distant planets, but beings from parallel dimension right here on Earth. However, I've also explained from my own experience, but also in this book, that the two things are not necessarily, you can be an interdimensional traveler if you are also an extraterrestrial evolved being. But regarding in Honorius, you do not summon a demon just to chat. You summon them to gain data or even manipulate the physical reality. So they are actually also used to control passion, human minds, so advanced psychological and neurological manipulation in modern terms. And then you have these seals that are given in this grimoire. It's seals, typical seals, and these seals can function a little bit like IP addresses or digital access codes. Without the exact geometrical sigil, the human operator cannot establish a secure uplink to that specific entity. One of the most rigid rules to be found in this Grimorium of Pope Honorius is that the magician must stay inside the magical circle, like I said. If they step out, the entity can tear them apart or possess them. Now, through a sci-fi lens, if you see it through sci-fi, the magic circle is a quarantine field because these entities exist outside of human biology. So direct exposure to their energy grid or radiation could be fatal, could intense psychological horror, the dread reported by some occultists result then in biological contamination, possibly. So if we see it under modern terms, definitely there is some interesting elements here. If these entities are ancient, highly advanced extraterrestrials who rebelled against a central cosmic authority, the God or Galactic Federation of the UFO lore narrative, then the Grimorium of Pope Honorius is essentially a stolen hack communication manual. A human priest is using something they shouldn't be using. and is using these names of God, this Catholic liturgy in an improper way, to force these rogue, outlawed extraterrestrial beings to pick up the transmission and obey commands against their will. That's why it's rather interesting that one of the beings is actually Ashtaroth, because I think we discussed in the past the commonality of Ashtaroth with Ashtar Sheran, which is a prominent protagonist in UFO lore since the 1950s, Ashtar Terran, the Ashtar Command, there are all these idiots that follow this Galactic Federation of Light. And it was all, by the way, conducted around the corner by George Van Tassel here in Joshua Tree, under that big, the big rock in which he built this thing for a period of time. Then he was doing these annual conferences there. But like I said, there is definitely a connection that with, I mean, the prime cosmic rebels seem to be the ones that are fallen, but in this case can also be somehow manipulated, or that is the wish of the guy who created this grimoire. Now, there is some who don't agree with this perspective and say simply that this grimoire was created to delegitimize and provoke the Catholic Church, almost sabotaging the Catholic Church, saying, you know, if you ascribe this grimoire to a pope and you then say that the priests are practicing this kind of demonic stuff, you are definitely bringing a bad reputation to the Catholic Church. I mean, that could be definitely possible, but the problem here is that there is a series of editions that have surfaced for those who have, of course, studied the whole thing. And it seems that it's rather very much from that period of time in which all these Solomonic magical grimoires started to surface. Suddenly you have something that is not really based on the Kabbalah, but is more based on a Catholic kind of, you know, it is a little bit different. So there is definitely, you know, a sin that brings down the fallen angels, but the sin that brings down the fallen angels in Genesis 6, and then the whole context seems to be different from the Book of Enoch, mainly for one reason. One is guided by the pride of Lucifer. The other one seems to be guided by the horniness of the fallen angels that want to go with the women on earth. So there's two different things there. But in regards to the Grimorium of Pope Honorius, it mimics the Catholic liturgy. It relies strikingly on the Bible books approved by the Church at the time. So the Church had rejected the Book of Enoch. So that's why, and that's the story of the Watchers centuries prior to that. Therefore, the Grimoire only targets standard Christian devils, let's say. The entities in the Grimoire are cosmic rebels and fallen celestial rulers, though, but for some they are different from the product of the Watchers of the Nephilim that were, of course, created by the union of the Watchers with the women of Earth. Now, in regards to this specific grimoire, the first edition of this grimoire, like I said, appeared in 1629 and was likely forged near the end of the 16th century. A.E. White said something specific that I would like Christy to read here.
I lost my earring.
Oh, don't worry about it, Christian. It is a malicious and somewhat clever imposture, it says here. Christy, please.
Oh, I was going to leave.
No, Christy, please. What about
I know. The show's about to go. We had problems today.
So,
okay. So it is a malicious and somewhat clever imposture, which was undeniably calculated to deceive ignorant persons of its period.
Ignorant priest.
Oh, persons.
Priest. That is priest.
Ignorant persons
of
its period who may have been magically inclined, more especially ignorant priests.
Okay, so ignorant priest and ignorant persons, let's say. It was made to deceive. Now, it pretends to convey, it says, the express sanction of the apostolic seat for the operation of infernal magic and necromancy. However,
some old copies of the Grimoire of Honorius bear, however, the name Honorius II, but it is impossible to make a sorcerer of that elegant Cardinal Lambert.
Okay, this stop, because you are going to the citation of Eliphas Levi. Eliphas Levi, who definitely is critical towards those who ascribe this to Honorius III and also Honorius II, the legitimate Honorius II, because he then gives the anti-Pope Honorius II explanation. Now, for those who want to maybe know more about anti-Pope Honorius and the possibility that he might have been the actual author, this is anti-Pope Honorius II. He was born Pietro Cadaio, was an anti-pope from the year 1061 to 1072. He was born in the county of Verona and became Bishop of Parma in the year 1045, and then he died in Parma. And this is a little bit the history of his appointment, of the controversies, and of course of the deposition of this pope that was, of course, in the end excommunicated. Then you have also a legitimate following that anti-Pope Honorius that died in the year 1072. There will be a legitimate Pope Honorius that is born in the year that is actually born Lamberto Scanabecchi. Is this is the legitimate, not to be confused. So just so you know, this grimoire is not of Pope Honorius II and neither of Pope Honorius III for Eliphas Levi and also for other historians. Actually, you know, it's obvious that there is a lot of controversy surrounding the authorship of a grimoire which is ascribed to a pope. That is obvious, you know. I mean, nobody wants a pope to be dealing with demons. But one thing is interesting, though, if you think about, because then I demonstrate in my book that if we see it in the more vast context of the Catholic Church, of what the Catholic Church has become after the Second Vatican Council, of what happened with the Pope who allegedly met with an alien in 1961, in July 1961, in Castel Gandolfo. If we see it in that context, then it starts to become a rather interesting perspective. I mean, like I said, it's a common occurrence, though, in papal history that you have anti-popes. When a legitimate pope then takes the same name as the previous anti-pope, they do not include the anti-pope reigns in the numbering system. So you can't be Pope Honorius II because you haven't recognized Pope Honorius II that preceded him. So that is the important thing. Regarding the grimoire of Pope Honorius is, like we said, the most important of the French black magic grimoires. But let's not forget that this grimoire was also connected with the Affaire de Poison. Les Affaires de Poison, it's an event that I discuss very much in this book, where I also discuss the importance of Paris and France as the first place that actually launched a black mass. So the fact that this grimoire of Pope Honorius was second only to the Key of Solomon in its influence is exerted on magicians and the charmers and cunning folk in both rural and urban France is very important, because then we had the whole affair that we're gonna of the Poison. Now, for those who don't know the affair de Poison, I definitely suggest you go and check this book, because it's one of the most gruesome affairs in the history of black magic. We're talking about thousands, not one, not two, but 2,000 fetuses aborted and used for a series of black magical rituals that scandalized the French royal court in 1679. And it became something of a big, it was a very big story. I don't know if you remember, Christy, but I've discussed it in volume 6.66, because then I point out the importance that France has in the actual development of the very concept of black mass. But the black mass is not born with Anton LaVey in 1966. That's the modern black mass. That's the black mass, the pop-tastic black mass. But the real black mass has to be celebrated by a Catholic priest. And then we can say that there was also a 13th century Italian polymath, Pietro d'Albano, that definitely with his occult grimoire Heptameron, or magical elements, influenced very much this grimoire of Pope Honorius. There is also another figure that might also have influenced this grimoire of Pope Honorius. There was a figure that preceded for a few hundred years before Pope Honorius grimoire, and it was called himself also Honorius. So there is also that element that is rather interesting in our story. But like we said, this is a very dangerous grimoire that nobody should ever practice in any way, shape, or form. We of course want to give you this information because this information is important historically and everything else, but please don't ever attempt anything. This guy who sorry, here, let me put share the screen, because I want to share this was the priest. Abba Etienne was a French Roman Catholic priest. The book apparently was found amongst his books. So the actual grimoire of Pope Honorius was found in 1679. That means that already in 1670 must have been widely available in France. He is best known for performing a series of black mass rituals with Catherine Mauveson for Madame de Montespan, who was the royal mistress of King Louis XIV, the famous King Louis XIV. Now, these black masses included always the sacrifice, aside from the naked body on the altar, typical of the black masses, but also the sacrifice included, of course, children. Now, Eliphas Levi, when it came down to the young goat that is deemed to be used rather than the sheep for the ritual, he says that the young goat in reality was a code for a child, for a kid, because they used to call young goats. So
this is horrible.
It's definitely, but I would like Christy to read this regarding the actual incantations that, as we can see here, are also Astaroth, Asmodeus, directly from the book, the grimoire. And the account suggests that Lavoisier performed ritual with a number of priests, including at least one whose work was uncovered by church authorities, forcing him to exile, as well as Guilbourg. It is unlikely Guilbourg took part in all of Lavoisier's black masses, but please move forward and read what it says here.
It is unlikely Goldberg took part in any of Lavassan's black masses. It is alleged. Maria, you want to read it? No. It is alleged upon her arrest, investigators discovered the corpses of 2,500 infants buried in her yard, allegedly sacrificed the same way as in Goldberg's ritual. Allegedly, Lavassan had paid prostitutes for their infants for use in the rituals. Eleanor Herman, in her book Sex with the Kings, claims that the police, given reports of babies' bones, uncovered the remains of 2,500 infants in Lavassan's garden.
Okay, that's pretty
horrible.
Okay, so these entities were evoked, but there was also, a price to pay, and the price to pay for some. White said that there was no human sacrifice involved. He was adamant that there was only the black cock, the goat, the young goat, or whatever. But in reality, it seems that there might have been something much more sinister lurking behind the Grimorium of Pope Honorius. Thank you so much for watching our show today. I know the subject was pretty heavy.
It's terrible. I was having a very hard time. My earrings flew off my ears. I couldn't read anything correctly.
Why do you think?
I think it's just all evil, and I was really uncomfortable this whole time sitting here.
Yes.
I just don't like to sit and hear this stuff. I mean, I know it's information, but I don't know. Anyway.
It is, I mean, it obviously, it's very macabre, it's very dark, it's very sinister, but...
I don't think that people really need to be... I really don't believe people need to be just even anything with this at all. It's just so bad.
I know, but I mean, that's why they have to be warned. When it says here, Summers provides, because Summers wrote a book about providing all the details, Montagu Summers, he says, Astaroth, Asmodeus, Princess of Friendship and Love, I invoke you to accept the sacrifice, this child that I offer you for the
Oh my God, you were going to make me read this too, weren't you?
No, that I didn't want you to read.
I would never read that anyway, and if you try to make me read it incantation, it's going to turn around and get you back.
No, I'm not thinking that you read any incantations here.
I don't read any incantations or anything like that.
Absolutely. But
we protect this audience with the power of the love of God.
Absolutely.
This audience is protected by anything evil.
Yes.
God bless you all.
If you want to know more the involvement of all this within the top secret Vatican agenda, please check out my latest book. This is a way of supporting the show, the Vatican Top Secret Agenda, Hidden Encounters, Forbidden Rituals, and Jesuit Astronomers in the Age of UFO Disclosure. Absolutely, please support us, because this book really helps us out. And then, of course, if you want to know more about this dark subject we just touched, volume 6.66, The Age of Cyber Satan, Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, is part of a trilogy dedicated to Cyber Satan with volume 7 and volume 9. And then we have, of course, Christie's book, Confessions of an Illuminati Princess, volume 1 and 2, if you want a female and more... let's say, less dramatic perspective. And then, if you want to also understand more about the Jesuits and their involvement with the occult grimoires, which I mentioned today during the show, also volume 12, which is the history, secret societies, and the politics of the Jesuit New World Order and the Luciferian court. Somebody says, I agree with Christy.
Oh, I found my earring.
I'm having a hard time.
I found it. It's down in here. Ooh. How did it go down there? It's by my belly button.
Christy. Okay.
Wait. Wait, whoa. Okay,
where is it coming? You're giving birth an earring?
Oh, shut up. Wait, no. Where did it go? Oh, God. Never mind.
Where did it go?
Oh, here it is. I found my earring.
Okay.
Anyway,
That's okay.
we need a little lightness in this program here.
Okay. We want to thank also the 200 people that are following us on Facebook, on
That's
YouTube, on X,
that's a lot of people.
BitChute, more than 200 people.
I love every single one of you.
Okay. Please support us, continue to support us with GoFundMe for more shows or with the purchase of these books. And now I'm going to go and enjoy a nice pizza.
Oh, yeah, I made one.
Yes, you can learn how to make your pizza with the Zagami Family Cookbook, Authentic Italian Cooking. Guys, they are talking about the fact that you can't even afford what they were saying, the affordability of a taco.
Oh, yeah, you can't afford taco.
People can't even afford
no more Taco Tuesday, guys.
But you can definitely afford to purchase this book and transform your kitchen in a 5-star Italian restaurant with all the beautiful recipes that Casey has put together. Because in these troubled times, we can only trust our own hands when we make food. Hello there.
True.
What's up?
Especially you can get so many bad things.
Yeah, guys. I mean,
like we were thinking about going because we have to go out on Sunday or Monday.
Yeah.
And then I just said I don't want to go out because I don't want to get sick. I'll just cook. So I'm just gonna cook. Yeah. But then you can buy ingredients and they can be wrong too. So. Well,
you can more or less, you know what kind of ingredients you want to avoid. If you don't want to end up with some troubled times, let's say troubled times, I won't add anything else, to that. So thank you so much for joining us today. Please tune in next week, and we are gonna be saying bye-bye with our usual.
Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. Secret society, trying to keep it on.
Where is it? Wait, they can dance together. What?
This incoming week, I'm gonna be with Jeff Mara. Jeff Mara was a very big podcast. You can find me there with him this week, and I have also some other shows. Also on the 11th with Christian White, my friend Christian White. And then, there is a few shows coming up, so I will keep you posted. Just tune in on my social networks and also, of course, on my official The Leo Zagami Show channel on YouTube. Wow, that's that good.
Scary.
Where's your ring?